Hello, everyone. Let's just start now, and I'll just admit people as we go. Um, sorry, I'm just muting your microphones. Uh, bear with me. I'm just admitting people as well. As ever, if anyone wants to talk, just unmute your microphones, speak whenever. We've got a good group already. I'll just carry on admitting people. But whilst I've got everyone, and if I could just say, there's lots of live events coming up. If anyone's interested in that, that's seeing me live, or it would be me and Rachel together live. Um, you're already on the YouTube channel. If you're watching this, go to the top where the links are. There's a link that goes to more about me, and in that there's a website, and that will tell you the live events coming up. So October the 17th is London and Hampstead. That's Rachel and myself. And then there's Hampshire in November and Brussels in December. Lots of fun things and more Zooms coming as well. It looks like Rachel and I will have a joint one on Saturdays. We've not quite worked that out just yet, but I'll keep you all informed. And as ever, everything is entirely optional in the payment. Coming to see these Zooms, watching these Zooms, coming to the meetings, I leave it deliberately open. Everything's free of charge. If somebody wants to donate, of course, that's massively helpful. Of course, that's hugely appreciated, but I leave it entirely up to you. Love and trust you all. Let's have some sort of an intro though. I'm feeling rather playful and naughty and frisky today. I don't know why exactly, so let's see where this goes. Yes, divine friends, let me tell you something. Over this last week, I seem to have, I was going away this weekend, so I wanted to cram in a lot of one-to-ones and speaking with people. And the consistent timbre or tone of these talks was, of course, the frustration in not getting something, the frustration in banging around in non-duality or other forms of spiritual seeking and not getting something, or waiting for something and not having it yet, or hearing that there's nothing they can do about it, even more frustrating. And, anyone who's been to enough of these meetings will have heard hundreds of times that this cannot be understood and this cannot be gotten hold of. So it's almost like there has to be a disbelieving of that for that persistence, that energetic persistence in trying to riddle this out. And even these words will be taken as shedding some light on this problem, which of course they're not in any way whatsoever. The whole idea that I am a person in this body, I'm legitimately separate with free will, and I can set about investigating all this. And if I work it out, some magical solution will be mine. And I tell you frankly, that was absolutely what was believed here in the story of Tobias. Absolutely, that was what's believed. But it's seen that all that work and all that story making was all the product of that belief that there was something there with that agency. It's not at all like a feeling that there was a me here and now it's gone. Far rather, it's seen that there was never any such thing as the me. Far rather, it's seen that there never was anything acting with free will, autonomy, agency. That never occurred, nor is even there a past, rather, in which it could have occurred, because the whole authority of time collapses too with the me. The me is that machine that's spinning energetically the notion this is all sitting in real time and real space. But this is an invitation to total freedom, to total freedom. And so the energetic security of being a me over here, separate, distinct, subjective, a me, that's secure, that's known, familiar. So that energy is being invited to total freedom. And maybe inside it, poetically, we could say there's a yearning for that, but there's also a fear of that. And so it's not in these words that some answer is going to be given that's going to take this illusory person to a place of great and full and total knowing. Far
But
rather, The tension that creates that notion of personhood just collapses, just relaxes. And in that, there's a direct impersonal seeing that there is just this in stark, total, divine immediacy. And that's unconditional love. It's unconditional love. That's all that there is. Appearing just as this, appearing as the stories that we might be prompted to share. And what goes away is the idea that they're referring to real things, that there's a real person having a real life with a real past who owns the story of that life. And all that can just relax and tumble away. And it's just the direct immediacy of just this, just simply unknowably this. It's bizarre, divine, paradoxical, total. So please feel free to share anything or ask anything. Just unmute your mics. Hello to the few names I'm seeing here who I don't think I've spoken to before. If anyone wants to speak, you can raise your hand also, or just unmute yourself. That's no problem. The seeker is not very much different from somebody desperately running all over the place looking for their own feet. This isn't in finding or getting. It's just in a relaxation of that whole system, that whole dualistic subject-object energetic system. And that relaxation is just utterly beyond anything that can be described. And when there's not a subject relating to an object, it's just pow, the complete and total unknowable thisness of just this.
Hello, Tobias. Do you understand me?
Hi there. Hello, Christiana.
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Hello. Um, I wonder about pain, physical pain,
Okay.
uh, and it seems to me very convincing that the pain is related to what I eat or drink. So I'm about information on Google, and it said that though if I'm drinking a coffee, there's a pain after. So time seems for me uh, a direct connection between what I eat or drink and pain. Um, uh,
And you're
so.
Sorry, you're
It's
saying this
always,
because you're saying it's like cause and effect that you're saying this
yes,
shows the cause
yes,
and
yes,
effect. Aha, right,
yes,
got you.
that's it.
Got you. Yeah, well, this is the incredible thing, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Christiana. Um, the incredible thing about the immediacy of just this is that is the end of the notion of the belief in something called cause and effect, because cause and effect is a story about separate objects operating on each other through time that have this consequence later in time that have caused this effect. Now, when there's a separate me's energy reporting itself in operation there, that's giving the notion of I am separate. Separation is real. I'm here, that's there. I'm really separate, they're really separate. And this is all happening. And it's happening, and things occur, and there's stories that can be told, and that has consequences. But when that
Yeah.
structure falls away, there might be something like eating food appearing, a pain appearing, but like nobody will be in the middle of that telling a story. There might be a knowledge of, that's a bad thing to eat, but nobody is having a convincing story of continuity through time being a real thing. That totally goes. That doesn't leave you an idiot. You could still you'd still know that turning on a light switch will appear to cause the light to go on. That doesn't totally go out of your head or go, it cannot be sensed, shall we say. But the notion of there being real cause and effect with real separate things changing through time, that totally goes.
Mm,
Totally.
mm, mm, mm.
No
It's
problem.
so it's not solid. It's not. There's no story uh, about cause and effect. If I let a glass down, it will break. But it's not important. There's no story about, oh, I shouldn't let the glass fall down.
Well, story can appear, but nobody will be inside it, having it and telling it. It might just appear like, oh, don't, if a glass is dropped and breaks on the floor, for example, that will appear to happen. That will timelessly appear to be occurring, but nobody will be inside that making a story
Mm,
of real cause and effect. It will seem like
yeah.
that. It will seem to have caused that. It will have seemed to have started the Zoom meeting when I turned the computer on. All those things seem to happen, appear to happen. There's just no sense that there's continuity going through that would legitimately make that story real. Sorry, 1 second.
Mhm.
So it's never, yeah, there's never anyone in there believing that as a real story. It's just the appearance of that story being told. The seeming,
Mm,
it's seeming like there being cause and effect.
yeah. Mm, thank you.
No, no problem. It's very mysterious, but that's immediacy.
Mm,
That's like how immediate this is.
yeah.
Freddie, please, I see your hand.
Yes. Hi, Tobias.
Hi there.
Yeah, so it was just occurred to me when you were saying that before we were all born, um, if we were, we were essentially started by all of the generations going back and back and back and back, and you know, and then to whatever origin story that we choose to believe in, and there are so many of them, and then after you die, the consequences of your life will apparently reverberate forever. Um, so looking at about that picture of the consequence of your actual life and your deeds during your life, it all dilutes into meaninglessness.
Not just
Um,
like it starts diluting, but like realize that the end point is 100% meaninglessness. Because, of course, there is no such thing as my life, what I did in the past. Nothing brings this about. This is total, just this. There's never, ever, ever a thing called my past life. That is part of the illusion of the me, that I'm alive through time. I had a past, I perform actions, and maybe in the future they'll be having those direct, relativistic, or even karmic consequences. All of that would be a fantastical story about continuity, and not a single bit of it would be of any validity whatsoever. Not a single bit ever. It's talking about separate things, separate people in separate times. It's just all the fantastical stories of the me. It's just this, fully and totally just this. Already, just this. It doesn't contain a past or a future, and nothing's brought this about. That's the total freedom, right? That's so open. So all the investment and security of, hey, here I am, the owner of the experiences, the summation of which makes my life and who I am, and here I am with all this. And that will also engender ideas of, I have a future which with these possible consequences. And that whole thing gets put down. So there's no sense of a life in a continuum through time. It's just the direct immediacy of whatever appears to be appearing.
thanks.
There's not much of a story you can tell about reincarnation when there's not even incarnation.
Hi, Tobias.
Hi, I think that's David's voice I can hear. Hi there.
Yeah, it is.
Hi there,
Hi,
mate.
Tobias. Hi, how are you?
Very good. And you, my
Excellent.
friend?
Yeah, grand, thanks. A strange thing, you know the way, well, you probably doesn't happen in your case, but you know the way if you had a bit of a fallout with someone or an argument, and you're maybe going to meet them again, it's sort of, you're going over what you're saying. You know the way the head goes, spins around us. And it wasn't a conceptual thing. Just suddenly, and I'd been going over this stuff had been going over in the head for hours. And suddenly, it was just like an energetic realization. There's no control anywhere of what is going to come out of this mouth the next time I meet that person. None. And it was actually quite frightening, because this has got a, this can say some stuff. And it actually just, and it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't a conceptual sort of, well, Tobias says it or any of that sort of stuff. Just like suddenly it hit me. Good God, anything could come out of this mouth, from the most pleasant apologetic to the absolute worst possible scenario. Anything, no limit anyway. And it was actually quite frightening because we like to think
It can
this is,
the first taste of that full glimpse of like the spontaneity of just what's appearing. It isn't like we think a loss of our free will, but it's a seeing that, oh my God, there was never anybody inside this controlling this. And that can just, oh, whoa, start descending on one. And it's more like that becomes more and more obvious, and it just becomes absolutely incontestable that that's obviously what's going on, that there's already no one there. That's the hearing of that. It suddenly can start to be seen that there's nobody controlling this.
yeah, because certainly in sort of in my family circle, there's a lot of what I would call, sort of niceness, but avoiding the issue.
Mm,
And and the sort of it's all very pleasant, but drives me insane. And it was just like, oh my God, that the safety of saying everything nice and doing
mm.
it doesn't exist.
See,
No,
all that
it doesn't.
bullshit goes. All that bullshit goes, like all the idea of I must present my me this way to be
Yeah,
worth it and to be accepted in this
yeah.
manner. There's a sense of propriety still, but all the existential tension of am I good enough and I must present like that, that completely goes. There's no concept of that. And you'll see that there was quite a substantial expenditure of energy on that. And that's like suddenly available for, and I don't want to make it sound too like an actuality, but poetically or energetically, we could say that the end of that me project permits a real dynamic openness in the character that's free to do and say whatever it does, and it will.
Yeah, it was just you know the way you hear these things at these meetings and stuff like that, but when it's suddenly, as I say, it was more of an energetic sort of thump. Um, oh God, there's no one controlling what comes out of this mouth.
And that's when it gets
And
scary. All that stuff is when it can
oh,
get scary when it's seen that there's not someone
yeah,
there, you know?
it was scary. It was like
Yeah.
there's and then that that it doesn't just it's not just in regard to speech, but it's in regard to anything, any behavior.
It's hearing that there's already no you there. And that will
Mm.
be fought against by the energetic comfort and security of that position of a me. But then, whether it likes it or not, that message is getting subtly energetically heard. And you can be walking down the street one day and it'll just become obvious that there's nobody inside this controlling this. It can start to fall apart and bleed apart, and can be about a little frightening and confusing and disconcerting. But that's what we speak about here. It's
Yeah,
100% energetic. It's a very subtle falling apart of that dynamic energy of that me being in that position, looking out, thinking that it can go about changing all this to whatever end. And that whole tension just falls apart. And it's just seen as all it was like a tense energy that's getting understanding itself as a real person, whatever it thinks that is. And that just relaxes and it's just pow, just the simplicity of just this. And
and
that's
that's
the
total
freedom.
yeah, that's the total freedom. That's just exactly what I was going to say. Not for anyone, but um, complete freedom from all the false ideas of control of my life and how I behave and how I'm perceived and all that. My good God, it's like a spider's web
Like
of all of
after
this.
you end up not knowing even what that means. So it's like it's so freed from that it just doesn't even have a meaning. It's not like there's a sense that, oh wow, I had a me here and now it's gone and it's really amazing with it gone. It's just the whole idea was just seen as always just a wow, a total illusion. And it's just not there anymore. And like nobody, there's not somebody in a new position enjoying that. It's
Yeah,
just the
no, I get
dynamic expression of that, just total freedom expressing itself.
amazing. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, for anyone who just joined and missed the beginning, I was just saying at the beginning that I'll put it up on the website in the next week, but it looks like we're myself and Rachel are going to start a Saturday Zoom together, so there'll be a new Zoom date, and I'll put those details up soon. Um, and I think instead of being 4 to 6, there'll be 4 to 5:30, so it's an hour and a half. Um, as long as people are all right with that, instead of 2 hours, it'd be an hour and a half. And I'll find out the time that we're going to do it on Saturday, and I'll let people know. But the Sunday one will stay this time, but it'll just be an hour and a half instead of 2 hours. Ah, Glenn.
You think you're going to have a WhatsApp group, Tobias?
I have one. You're on that, aren't you?
I was on the old one with the hand grenade thing. No, no, I'm not.
All right. Okay. Do you email? Do you have my email?
No, just your phone number.
Okay. Yeah, well, phone me your number, or if you've got my number, I'll check and I can invite you back to the group.
Okay.
Similarly, anyone on here who wants to join the WhatsApp group, my email is tobiasricardo333. You can email me your phone number and I can invite you onto WhatsApp. Yeah. Or you can go onto the website and reach me through tobiasricardo333 Gmail. But yeah, David, I'll invite you back on. It just keeps everything the advertising there. I can keep people up to date easily. Ah, Glyn, God bless you, my friend. Thank you for watering my plants. Mwah.
That's no worries, dude. Are you on your own today?
Rachel might jump on the Zoom shortly. She's just busy just at this moment, but she might be joining. We'll see. We'll see. 50-50.
Cool.
Hello, Tobias.
Hello, who's this? Is this Horus the Third?
Yes.
What a fantastic name. Hello.
Hello, hello. So I have a question. My question is, I wrote it in the chat, but I think you didn't see it.
I couldn't read it in time. Ah, please, yes.
Yeah, no worries. My question is, would you say that the me and that basically need itself, is the same thing or the same energy?
Of need. Need.
Yeah, need and the me.
Yeah, they're not a million miles off, but like the energy of the me is what it's believing is because it's believing it's the owner of the experiences that appear to happen, and it believes that it can go about doing things. It believes it therefore needs to do these things so it can own the experiences or own the goods that it goes about getting. But that need is all this, it doesn't, if the me falls away, for example, in the poetry that we speak of in this meeting, it doesn't mean that you don't then stop needing food or clothing or shelter and all these things. But it's not the compulsive need to be like this or like that. It just becomes really basic, sort of human animalistic needs of like uh, social companionship, food, watering, shelter, things like this, really simple. And what's not there is this desperate need to do this thing so I can present myself in that way, be seen like this or not be seen like that. And all those needs just completely fall apart. The tension that's driving them to be acquired. And a need then just becomes like the basic bodily requirements. But it's part of the product of the me's belief that it's in control and doing it, that it's believing that. I don't know if you're talking. I can't quite hear you, my friend.
No, I was
Ah, there you are.
listening.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Because it seems there's just this kind of totality or whatever you would call it, like Andreas would call it wholeness, complete wholeness or whatever, whole and complete.
Yes.
But then there's this like this overlay of all those needs of certain outcomes and like I want these people to like me or whatever kind of stuff. I want the future to be like this and all this stuff.
Hmm.
Then
Well,
becomes
it's not
very
really an overlay. I mean, it's like in without doubt, to be really clear, it's definitely shared here that it's never the case that it's not absolutely total, whole, complete, without borders or divisions. But there can be something like that contracted me's energy, which is reporting about a story through time where it's doing things and it can acquire things and it needs to look like this or look like that or be seen like this or be seen like that. And that totally goes, that totally collapses. There's no sense of what it would mean of hoping to be um, have my life seen in this way. Those ideas would never again be able to be formed. There's no concept of what my life is, and are people seeing it this way or that way, or even that there's other people seeing and owning the seeing of this of my life. All that just falls apart totally into the immediacy of just this. So it's just the immediacy of that question appearing to be asked, not even referring to anything, because there's nothing other than just the totality of just this. So it never ends up with getting an answer or a solution. It just far rather collapses into the total and freedom, the invitation rather to the total freedom of just this.
yeah, because here it seems like that a lot of energy is put into this
Yes.
this kind of thinking, what are they thinking, what is this and so on. I think more so than many others here. So I really do wonder like what it would look like if it collapses.
It does, it is it's burdensome, the weight of that existential self that maybe is not feeling good enough, that's wanting to present itself in this way or that way. That's a huge expenditure of energy. And when this falls apart, it does appear that it's impersonally seen that the me is almost constructed of all that investment of energy of I must do this, I hope I do this, I hope I'm not seen like that. And all that energy and that fear and that conjecture and that hope goes round and round, if you like, as the energetic nature of that contracted illusory me. And it's almost like the unconditional love that lives within this message is circumventing that apparent story of the me over there and speaking directly to it energetically, because this is 100% energetic. And it's speaking to it and whispering that okay. It's okay for it to let go of itself. You will not be able to perform the letting go of the me. Its own tension can just relax. And in that relaxation, there's just the impersonal seeing that there's only all that there ever timelessly was, unknowably just this. But we don't get that.
Yeah, I think you're right with the of course with the idea of not being good enough and all this stuff, and also with shame and stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
so then it's interesting here when listening to this message. Sometimes it can feel like a loss of control,
Hmm.
like glimpses and this stuff. But then there's a huge because I think it's because the nervous system of this body is quite anxious and a bit paranoid, and
Hmm.
very sensitive. And so then when it feels like a collapse or like a loss of control, uh, gets scared, and
Yeah.
then also with shame, it's like it like in social situations, can even feel like it's collapsing a little bit, but then it comes back even stronger because it's so afraid of doing something like shameful in this loss of control kind of stuff. So then it's like this Ouroboros or whatever, the
Ouroboros, yeah, chasing it.
Ouroboros kind of thing. Yes, chasing his tail and like
Yeah, but
yeah.
it's important to point out that it's never ever is seen that it's not seen that there's a loss of control. It's seen that there never was a controller. So it's never like there might earlier on when the me is reporting itself there and it's fearing about the future, it might fantasize that if it's not there, everything's going to go to hell because it thinks it's in charge. But that's not what ends up happening. It's what's seen is that it never was there in charge. It's not like it was there and now it's not. That never happens. So it's just a falling apart of all that worry and concern into just the perfect immediacy of what unknowably is just this. And that's always the case. It's always just this. It's always just this. And like, somebody might be reporting the energy of that me, and they might be coming with the nature of their story. I'm like this. I'm anxious. Or maybe it's I've been a seeker for 25 years, or I had this really bad thing happen to me when I'm 10, and I own the trauma of that. Here I am. I am the owner of this experience, this trauma, this whatever. And that security and that habit of going around in that energy is being directly confronted by this invitation to total freedom. And like that security is a real habit and it's being seduced into just letting go of itself. And that's absolute total annihilation and total liberation at the same time. Total freedom. It's easy to forget though how willing to stay in a contracted, tight formulation the me is happy to go on like that. And if for whatever reason it hears this message, energetically that can just loosen, shall we say, and make somewhat erratic that circularity of the me. And it's less and less able of presenting itself as this solid, separate human with a past and a future. Mm.
Yeah, what it seems like here is that usually wakes up in the morning kind of contracting, feeling contracted, and then listening to videos like that, and the same talk is going on in my head with my own meetings in my own head with the
Yeah.
non-duality meeting. And then it loosens usually in the afternoon, and then it can get quite free, and but this has happened since like maybe a year or maybe more even. It's just usually wakes up kind of contracted and it's almost forgotten, and then it's kind of a remembering the kind of message and stuff, and it loosens up again, and it's whole. That's what it seems like in the story, you know.
But like it's just like every little bit of energy we give to that story, like the feeling it's worth being told, the feeling that in any way that happened, that awarding of energy and giving it the notion that that's a real story is exactly how that energy of that contracted me is keeping going that wonderful fairy tale of that real world that it believes it's moving through time in. And so it tells its stories of, in the day it feels like this, in the afternoon it feels like that. And it'll make a story of the continuity. And that's the way it stays alive. That's the way it hides from the fact that no, there's already no you there. And that's how it hides from that. Because energetically, believe it or not, radical non-duality is nothing other than the confrontation of that energetic belief that that's a tight, separate self, hearing the message that no, there is already no separation. There's already no you there. It's an illusion of being there. So the hearing of that's not a getting. It's a very mysterious falling apart and dying. The authority that the past seemed to carry with it, in the sense that it happened and has consequence, drains out of it fully. So it's just a story being told about the past, story about this, about that, but none of it's connected in a continuum. It's too explosively just this. And like it's the same thing. It used to be the case in the story here. There's the fascination with that me and the fascination with that me falling apart. And like our we believe we're investing our free will in going about searching for this. Things seem to be happening. So that seems to be consequential. And so we tell the story that, yeah, that really happened, and then that means this or that. And that just keeps the ball going. And the Ouroboros, like you said, chasing its tail. Ah, that happened. That really happened. That's meaningful. Oh, it's meaningful. Oh, wow, that must have really happened. And going round and round and round. And the whole thing's an utter illusion.
Yeah, what it also does here is always the comparing, like okay, like yesterday I felt so free, now today it's contracted. Maybe I ate something wrong, or
Yeah,
or whatever, and then it's comparing what did I feel freer like 1 month ago, or
yeah. And as long
uh,
as you can tell that story, you're still a me, you're still alive, and you can keep safe from a liberation. Because the me doesn't want this. The me doesn't want to disappear, doesn't want to not be there, doesn't want to be told it doesn't exist. And so all that stuff is how it keeps very safe from liberation. It keeps telling its story. I was really there. This happened to me last month. I'm really here. And it's all just not hearing that no, there's already no you there. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's the most wildly paradoxical thing there could be. Where are you, by the way? It looks really pretty there.
I'm in Switzerland.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a nice river where I usually swim in every day.
Hi there, those people I've just let into the uh, chat room there. Please feel free if you want to ask anything, just to unmute yourself or raise a hand. Yeah, please, Monique.
Hi, Tobias. How are you?
Hello, my love. I'm good, thank you.
Good. Um, I was trying to trying to figure out my question here. So I don't know your whole story, but it sounds to me like you had a very profound experience where all of the me disappeared in a moment, right? Or well, what we would call a moment.
Hmm.
And this didn't happen to me. It sort of, and I've talked to quite a few people about how how their understanding of themselves changed over time, and I get often two different scenarios. One is like, oh my God, all of a sudden, boom, right? And then the other is like unlayering over time. It's almost like a thinning of the self, um, to the point where you get to the point where it's so thin where it all of a sudden seems really obvious that it's not there, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it happened for me. The first thing that happened, I mean, I won't get into the whole story, but I went through many years of psychotherapy, um, which was helpful in some ways at that point in my life, and then really wasn't. And it got to a point where actually it was worse. It was getting worse. um,
Hmm.
and to the point where I ended up getting a degree in psychology and then writing a thesis and publishing a paper on it. But it was basically, I almost felt like the story of me was actually getting thicker at some point. um, and um, and at some point, I got to this place. I won't get into the whole story how, but it really hit me how the thoughts of myself and the thoughts around the feelings of myself were the thing that was creating the self in the first place. And it was so profound that it rocked me. And I was actually in graduate school at the time, and I annoyed everyone on earth about it. And, because it was like, why are we talking about this when it's not here? Like, and it profoundly affected how I approach psychology at that point. But the other thing that happened to me was I had a very expressive experience. Um, I won't get into that either. It's a longer story too, but where I had a question occur to me in the middle of I was about to start throwing shame all over myself. Like I was in a situation where I did something that, sort of self-defeating that I had been struggling with for most of my life. And I ended up in this situation where this occurred and I was about to like start throwing like horrible stuff in my direction about what a terrible person I am for still struggling with this thing after all these years, right? And it's like I could feel the energy swirling around me, like it was like gathering up its energy to just throw it in my face, right? I was just about to just pummel myself, right? And at that moment, I'd actually been listening to Rupert Spira for a while, and it's funny, he doesn't ask this question anymore. But I'd seen him in a live retreat in Berkeley, California, and he had asked somebody who was struggling with rage, and he asked, on whose behalf are these feelings arising? And in the retreat, I was like scratching my head. I was like, that's an interesting question to ask. And I was pondering it and this and that. And I let it go. And in this moment, it was like a month later. And I was like about to just throw shame on myself. And this question just popped into my brain. On whose behalf are these feelings arising? And it was so obvious there was no one there. There was no one on whose behalf these feelings were arising. And the feelings, it's like I felt them swirl up around me and then just drop away. It was like there's nowhere for it to stick, right? And I have never in my life ever felt so present. It's like I felt like I could hear for miles away. Like my vision changed. Like I had no thoughts it was crazy. And my life has profoundly changed. I've never ever been the same again.
But you
Um,
know what? That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. With all that stuff with awareness teachings and Rupert Spira and all that stuff, I was before I involved myself, let's say, in radical non-duality. There was a period with Rupert Spira and things like that. And
yeah.
what's amazing is when there's those meditations appear to get done, those experiences will routinely happen, and it feels amazing. It feels like there's a oneness, and the life is that radically changing, and there can be feelings of at one with everything, and incredibly feeling of beneficence and helping people, and spontaneously beautiful things will start to appear in the story. But that's all nuanced experience, and the whole lot, bam, gets thrown out of the window. Because when it's heard that no, it's already done, there's already no you there. There's no you there who practiced these fancy practices for however many years. There's no you who was the enjoyer of the benefit of those practices. In the same way that you say, who was the architect on whose benefit was that anger, let's say. The same
Mhm.
question is, who do you think was benefiting from all that story you told? That story did not happen. None
Mhm.
of that happened. That didn't happen to anyone. We will
Mhm.
feel it's precious because it's our story. It's our
Right.
story, right? It's our story. And we walk around with our story. and the fantastic bits of it, and this is what it is, and this is what it means. But it's
Mhm.
we didn't have it, and it means nothing, and that's not nice for the me to hear. But it's
Mhm.
not meaninglessness in the sense of nihilism. It's in the sense that there's nobody there to whom it's meaningful. It's just what is divinely appearing to appear, and that's absolutely non-dual and total and undivided and not separate. And it's
Mhm.
just this. And the idea that there's real separate people in that, having experiences through time or causing experiences to happen to them through time with their agency, that's all part of the dream of the illusion of the me. And it
Mhm.
can get involved, it can believe it's getting involved in all sorts of meditations. And those Rupert Spira meditations are fantastic. You'll feel great, but it's got nothing to do with the totality of this.
Yeah, that was kind of my question is that even after all that that didn't happen, I still get these periods of time when all of a sudden I feel like a little human on Earth, separate from everyone else. And
Mm.
all of a sudden I get scared
Yeah,
and I get like I feel separate. I don't
yeah.
feel one with it's like all of a sudden like it looks like somebody can do something to me harmful. Like and it's like I call that a contraction. Like all of a sudden I contract into this
Yeah, that you
right.
see, those meditations have to be kept up. I remember Rupert once saying to me that his definition of enlightenment is when less and less things can take you from that state. He's talking about really advanced, nuanced states where you can be in that great state of being at one with everything, but then you'll lose it and you'll be a me again, go like in a normal contracted way. Yeah, that's the me's energy. Dreaming it's doing this, dreaming it's doing that, dreaming it's here in a contracted way, dreaming it's feeling really expansive. The
Mhm.
whole lot goes. There's
Yeah,
no personal sense. So there's
right.
no sense of I'm having a life that's good or bad. There's just unconditional love, and that's it,
Hmm.
appearing as all of this. But for that to be for that invitation to total freedom to be impersonally heard and taken, what has to be impersonally surrendered is the security of that personhood and the familiarity of this is my life and this is my story. Let me tell you about when I was this, or when I was a monk, or when I lived with this person, or when, like whatever the person's story is. Let me, and that's who I am. I own that experience. I own that past, and all those ideas fall apart. There's no personal sense, just
Right.
immediacy of this.
Right. Because there's still a sense that something happened to me and now I'm changed, right? Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get it. And
And this isn't a criticism. That's not you. That's just the me's
no,
energy will do that
no,
naturally.
I'm seriously, I'm very
Yeah.
curious about this, so I don't take any of it personally, but and it to me, I'm curious about what it looks like, it's like
It's
I mean,
nuts.
that's why we're all talking about it. Like,
It's
otherwise,
nuts.
we'd have nothing to say, right? But it is nonsense. But
Money, imagine like sitting here, right? We're having what appears to be an intelligent conversation about this, right?
right,
There's no idea what's coming out of here. None. It's just the absolute immediacy of words appearing, hands moving. And that's not because any speaker's special in any way. Absolutely not the case. There's nothing special. I don't have anything that other people don't have. It's just the appearance here of a body where you could say, without that contracted me reporting there, it's just absolute, a direct expression of nothing, of no thing, of not to-ness, of no thingness, nothingness. So there's not things, there's not separate things anymore. There's no weight to that reality of separation. So this, the words coming out here, it's not important what's being said, it's energetically, it's just this is 100% about energy. So it's just absolute oneness is just saying that there is only this. There is already no separation. There's already no you there. And like that might be taken in conceptually, but the energy of that is what appears to knock that me out of kilter and in an extraordinary way, it falls apart. It doesn't get anything. It doesn't have any big mystical experience, and no life is there. There's no new Monique really free in the center. It's freedom from Monique, not for Monique. And in that freedom, it's just total freedom, total freedom, total,
Yeah.
which is, of course, what's yearned for,
It's
unfear.
what
What's yearned for the most. I mean, underneath everything, we're yearning to put down that weight of meanness and have that falling into just this. But there's a fear of losing the security of that and a fear of what's going to happen if I'm not there.
do you just because I get scientific about, do you feel like that sense of me is part of what keeps the dream going? I mean, in some ways, I have to know which face to feed when I'm feeding myself, right? I'm not going to feed another face, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's
the
some way.
human knows exactly how to do that. It knows how to make friends. It knows how to take a partner. It knows how to be a mother. It knows how to raise children. It knows how to go to work. There never
Mhm.
was a me in there doing all these things. So what's seen is that was the illusion that there was a person there who was real, having a life through time. That falls apart. It's not a new type of state, and there's not a sense that there was a me there and now it's gone. It's just Monique. I say this with the greatest love. It's just but bam, the fullest expression of unconditional love, just
Mhm.
appearing as just this. It's so near. It's so near. It can't even be avoided. It's like always the total embrace. Absolutely nothing is outside of just this. Nothing has brought this about. Nothing's brought this about. Isn't that amazing? Like this is just so total. Nothing, it doesn't have a history that's created this and it's not going off somewhere. And there's nothing
Mhm.
outside of this that can come into this, nor anything in this that can go out of it. It's just totally total and just this. And it
Yeah.
might be appearing as a Zoom meeting, but whatever.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is what it feels like to me? Do you feel like there's a place where the mind causes interference or the ego or whatever you want to call it, that process like causes interference? Because I feel like that, like I spent like 2 years like grilling Rupert Spira, like left, right, and center, because I was like, what do you mean? Like, you know, and it's like I have this skeptic part of me that just kind of like this all sound like back then this all sounded like woo woo, like nonsense, right? And so it's like I feel like to some degree like there's a part of my brain that resists this kind of understanding, and and then it doesn't make sense that that's even a thing too. So I don't know, it's curious to
The problem is like here's a real clear dividing line between understanding what the difference between the expression and the exposure, which is never a teaching about of radical non-duality, and the teachings of awareness teachings like Ramana, Nisargadatta, or the modern incarnations like Rupert Spira. Okay. Rupert to teach that or that teaching has to be based on there's a person there, I see you there, I'm going to tell you and instruct you what to do, and if you do it right, then maybe in the future you will get this, right? That is a product of the illusion of the me, believing it's real, it's there, and it's moving through time. When you come to speak to somebody who's a speaker of radical non-duality, that's a direct exposure. There will never be a time where advice will be given from this mouth to you how to get liberation. Couldn't happen. Couldn't happen. There's
so there's
only
no
ever the saying that there's already only liberation, and there's no you there to do anything about that, nor need there be anything done about it. The illusion is, no, I'm separate, I'm real in this body, in time, and I know nothing of this oneness of which you speak. And that illusion can just fall apart. It doesn't conclude in the getting of a personal liberation that it can own. It just relaxes and falls apart. And it's seen that there's no such thing as separate people called Rupert Spira, that over separate time we did this or did that.
Hmm. But you don't think that there are things that help it relax to let go of that? Like you said, it relaxes it and
Well, I say it appears to in the poetry of what we say, but nothing can help or hinder something that's already not there. Does anything help or hinder anything. This is already fully done. It's already this. Nothing needs to make it more just this. So all the idea that something has to be done is the idea that this isn't it.
right. No, I I think what I was asking though is that can there be interference in a way that causes one to not be able to see what's already true?
It would be telling a story. It would never be real because you know, there's the illusion of a person that's feeling separate, and that's the illusion. Nothing is, and it's an illusion of the reality of time and space and cause and effect. So nothing is causing the illusion of cause and effect, and nothing will cause the ending of the illusion of cause and effect. So the question you're asking, is it causing this or is it causing that, can only be answered in the terms of something that makes sense of a thing called cause and effect, which is duality. There's a thing here in this time doing this, which causes that. That's a whole dualistic analysis through time. Without duality or the illusion of duality, there's not a thing called cause and effect. Nothing's causing anything. There's nothing separate to cause anything else. It's just this.
Hmm. I don't want to take up too much time. I might have to ask you about the cause and effect later because I joined late and my
There's
friend
no
Leah
problem.
said you already talked about it. So um but it you know in the appearance of things there is cause and effect, right? Like that's how we
Yeah, yeah.
build rockets and do
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, sure.
Um and so it seems like that matters on the appearance of things to some degree.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question that I was asking was on the level of the appearance of things, it like how it looked to me in the appearance of things is that I went from massive skeptic, like this is BS, woo woo stuff, to those resistances thinning and clearing to the point where I was more open, I guess, to what was being said. And that's how it felt in
Mhm.
in the in the
And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it just will be increasingly seen that the idea that there was a you to whom things happened that matter, that just
yeah,
totally falls apart. Because
yeah,
you're saying, and it seemed it matters. It's the end of mattering. Because when things aren't seen as substantial and real and happening, there's not a response there that says, ah, that's occurred and is therefore consequential to
yeah,
me.
right,
So that system just falls apart.
right.
So it's very dynamic immediacy. So
Yeah.
whatever, so even if I could, if there was an inspiration here to tell the story of how I used to be a monk or go to Jim Newman or go to Andreas or Kenneth or Tony Parsons, there wouldn't be an idea that that helped in any way.
Yeah, no, I
Which
get
is
it.
weird, which is weird. And I used to say to Jim Newman, because he used to say to me, I used to say to him, are you telling me the fact that you used to go to Tony and so did the others and they're all liberated, and that's how I saw it then, there was no connection. And he said, no, no connection. And I couldn't believe it. It was just nuts to me. But I can only repeat the same thing and say there's no connection because the illusion is that there's not liberation and there's a story about getting it. And then
Yeah,
at the end, it's seen that that was all nonsense. There was only ever liberation. So there was never anything helping because there was never anything to be helped. Nothing happened. There wasn't even a past. It's just this.
And you don't think that it's curious that people who follow Jim Newman or who kind of go on this path end up finding liberation, so to speak?
More than curious. I think it's weird as I think it's mental. I think it's so paradoxical that I went to, in my apparent story, I went to Jim Newman lots. I went to Kenneth lots and Tony and
Mhm.
Andreas, right? And the fact that it appears I'm doing this now, I can tell you the two had no relationship to each other in any way, which is mental even to hear those words come out of this mouth. I don't know what words are going to come out here, but it's crazy to even say that. But it's true.
Yeah.
Because what's seen is there was never a process. There was never a time where there was a person called Tobias there who went to this person there who did this thing and now it's gone and now it's this. All
Mhm.
that's just seen as a total illusion. Total, it's just a story. And so I've just told you that story about going to those places. Those words can come out. I can say, I used to go to Kenneth Madden, but there's no sense of what those words mean or that that relates to a thing in the past. They're just words appearing in absolute immediacy and they mean zero. Zero. It's not even like it's like 90% energy and 10% the words. 100% energy. Doesn't
100%.
matter. It wouldn't matter if I was just going blah, 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 blah. When I have retreats, I often it makes sure that yes, there'll be meetings, but there'll definitely be me cooking for people. There'll definitely be dancing. There'll definitely be laughter and eating together because there's no difference to the meeting. There'll be meetings. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There'll be meetings, but that resonance is always there. There's nothing other than the invitation to all that there unknowably is.
Yeah. It almost sounds like you popped out of it, right? You popped out of the understanding of the separate self in a way where it was like, I mean, we use the analogy of the dream. It's like when you wake up, you don't you don't bank on the fact that all these things happen in the dream. You don't base your life on the story of the dream, right? You know that it just didn't happen. You wake up, you realize it didn't happen,
Well,
right?
it's even madder than that because like the implication is like, so there's the dream of being this dualistic life, and then that goes along, and then there's a waking up, but there's no waking up from it. It just stops, and what's after that cannot be described
Yeah.
because nobody's having it. Nobody is now the owner of the no me.
Mm, right.
Who
Yeah.
would who would be the one without a me? Who would it be?
Yeah.
There's nobody there.
There isn't, right? Do you think that there are people? Now I'm the way I'm saying it, it's already wrong. Um, okay, I'm just gonna say, do you think there are people in the world who live from a non-dual understanding and no separate self who don't even know it, who don't recognize it, who aren't like, hello, I had a non-dual experience, like people who
I,
just live?
I, I've spoken to people who've had these things, who've had no background in spirituality or non-duality, and like I know people who've had glimpses and all sorts of things, but and like they routinely will think they've gone insane, and they normally end up going to the doctors. And I've got very close friends like that who had those things happen. They've fallen away totally now, but in the apparent story of that apparent past, there was awakenings or non-dual impersonal seeing, shall we say, and there was no context for that, so that it was scary, and they didn't know what was going on. And they went to psychiatrists. Yeah,
Yeah, that happens probably more often than we know.
I suspect so. Yeah, I suspect so. I
But
have
do you
no idea, but yeah.
but do you think that there are people that don't have like a change that just simply live like this, like always? Or do you
Well,
think
like
that it's
from
always?
birth.
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently there have been. I've never met one or spoken to one, but who was it I was talking to the other day? Oh yeah, I was hanging out with Richard Sylvester, who's a speaker, and he said he's met a couple or spoken to a couple. I've not in my own case, I haven't, but
Mhm.
it's possible. I mean, I can't see what the problem would be with it, you know. All babies in their dream of this appearance, all babies when they're newly born for the first year or so. I mean, there's very obviously not a me in that position there. They're not construing an idea of their life. They're not thinking, my God, mum came in for a bottle for a bit and she's been gone ages. That's really annoying. And they're just crying. They're just
Mhm.
annoyed and crying. They're not making a narrative story about it. They can't, obviously. And
Mhm.
it's more like that. If you wanted a sort of similarity, it'd be more like an adult baby with an adult's body and those mental facilities apparently available.
But do you think that the development of the child, it, I mean, it seems like really not just common, but almost mandatory that people develop a sense of a separate self, like as they grow
It
up.
appears that way. It appears that way. But I tell you, like, I'm more than happy to say it does definitely appear that way. But I would just feel I was doing a disservice if I didn't mention the caveat that there can never, ever, ever, ever be anything concluded from that, right? Because that would mean that we'd have to be talking about a real actual thing where there really are real separate people really growing up through time with really not a me and then really having a me. Then we could look at that in a real cause and effect way and make a cogent, intelligent analysis about it, right? And all that would be operating from the purview or the understanding or the limits of duality. And like none of that stands. So there's just simply nothing that can be deduced from the appearance. Whatever appears to be appearing, there's no reality or substance to it. And there was a big change in this story when that facility seemed to just fall away of the addiction of trying to construe this appearance in meaning. So this is real, this is happening, and that's therefore consequential and meaningful to me. And that whole desperate desire to understand, to know, to get what's going on seemed to relax. And in that relaxing, there wasn't that addiction to um, putting things in an order and telling a story that gains understanding. So like you're trying to, for example, your questions are trying to make a palatable story for you. So you can have a narrative in the story and go, aha, now I get this story. I'm happy with that. I buy into that. I'll put my energy into that. I'll own
Right.
that. That it all falls apart. There's no navigating total freedom. No navigating at all. There's no story that will make sense of total freedom.
Yeah, I do. I
And
mean,
that's the
I'm
addiction
not,
of the me needs to know.
yeah, I'm not the only one. There is an addiction to creating a story that makes sense, that we grab, that we hold, and we,
All me's do it. Of course, you're not the only one. Every single me does it. Every single one of them does it. You know,
yeah.
that's what the me does. It's a subject. So by virtue of it being energetically subjective, it's literally objectifying the appearance, making it, giving it the quality of being an object, a this and not a that duality. So it's no longer infinite and unknowable. It's discrete and finite. So that's this shoe and not a butterfly. That's what that is. It's a thing and it's really that. I'm me, I know that. And that, you know, that's the duality of which we speak. And without that sense of separation, it's just the appearance of what's appearing, but from no one's perspective.
Mm, I'm just, yeah, I'm curious. Like, so when you see a butterfly, as opposed to a dog, it looks to you like it's just happening and it's not like separate things, or I
There's
don't.
no separation at all. So there's no edge between it. So it's not like everything's therefore smushed together. But like if I get like so I'll hold up this glass of water. So like you can see my hand and a bracelet and a ring and a glass of water, and they all appear like separate objects. But the idea that they are legitimately separate things is totally created by and falls apart with that notion of the me. So this is just absolutely the totality of just this appearing as an arm, appearing to appear as an arm with a bracelet on, but none of it is separate to anything else. Not like they're smeared and merged into one another, but like the notion of separation doesn't exist. So it's all undivided, non-dual, just appearing. The same oneness is appearing as all these apparently separate things, but they're not separate. It's non-duality. So that's what's shocking. And that's not something is a new type of way of seeing. It's just there's not a separate you there being the separate thing, making it all separate. It's bah, just this. Very
But there
close.
there is a local, like you're seeing you're seeing from a perspective though, right? I mean,
No.
you're not seeing what's happening all the way across the earth. You're not seeing, like, there is some limited perception
Yeah, but
to.
the me won't no longer sees from us. There's not a me seeing from a perspective. So there's not a Tobias in this seeing Monique. Seeing appears to be occurring, but there's not somebody doing it and there's not someone being seen. It's just seeing appears to be happening.
Mm.
So there's nobody being the experiencer of that.
And the fact that you can't, it's all one, but you don't see all one, like you're not seeing everything on earth right now. That is just in the appearance of what's happening,
Well,
or
well,
I don't.
it's not even say all one would be too much. There's just not two. There's no division. There's just the entire undivided wholeness. But of course, you can't see the totality of all that there is from a subject. You can't be a subject and look at all that there is because you're included in it if you think you're a subject. There's just looking appearing and just this, just talking appearing, and there's no notion of anything other than just this. There's nothing outside of this. Total.
I think that's confusing to me, just because if it's total, then it's total, and yet I'm very
It will never not
connected.
be confusing because if it wasn't confusing and you were understood it, that would mean that you, separate, could understand all that there is and know it, right? And that's what ends the subjective knower of all of whatever it thinks it's trying to know. When that
Right.
goes, you will not comprehend it. Tobias isn't making the claim that he comprehends or knows this. It's too immediate for that. That's what falls apart, the duality of a subject knowing something. That's what's falling apart. So it's just the immediacy of the words appearing, and it's like play, divine play. It's not taking place in time or space. But that won't satisfy a me because it wants something. It wants to see it or know it or experience it. And like that's not satisfying. In fact, it's scary. It can be terrifying. Totality is is quite confronting. It's total freedom, but it's annihilation because it's freedom because it's the end of specificity. There's nothing specific. You're not here as a person here, and I'm me, and that's my border, and everything else is not me, and that's out there. That goes. It doesn't mean that you're now everything. The me's not there. There's just all that there is, and that's all that there is.
Yeah.
And that will not ever make sense.
Yeah, I can like hear my little brain saying things like, is this safe? Like,
Yes, that's you see now that's
that's the
honest.
question.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the question. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the tension. So like, you've got to a place where that's really energetically, authentically speaking for itself. So what's happening there is like we spoke before, the balance between the security of that habituated me and this energetic offer of total openness and freedom. And it goes, well, hang on, actually, that doesn't sound actually like something that I want very much. That's a bit scary. Maybe it's true that I've spent 20 years seeking for it, but now that you actually called me on it, that's how I felt. I was an ordained monk. When I got near this and it kind of called me on my bullshit, it called my bluff and it was terrifying. I found it terrifying. I consider myself quite a tough guy and I found it really confronting, like that the totality of unconditional love, of it not being specific, of it not going to be to bias at one with God, but just God is. That was a hell of a 360. I guess all along I hoped that there would be something around to experience it all and know it or have it. But that's the limitation. I mean, that's nothing. The immediacy and obviousness and totality of this is way beyond knowing. It's not in knowing. It's just totally and fully just what it is already.
Yeah, and it's interesting that there's the terror when it's already happening anyway. So there's not like there's
Utterly pointless,
nothing's
yeah, of
gonna
course.
happen, like right? Nothing's gonna
Yeah.
happen because it's already happening, right?
Well, it's terrified that something's going to go wrong when it's not there and everything will go out of control because it believes that it's holding the whole show together. But what's seen is that it was never there. So there's never ever a position where there's the terror of, oh my God, I'm not in control. That doesn't happen. It's just seen that there never was that control. But like when the me is still there, it can be terrifying that like these notions as they start to energetically approach. But in the actuality of what's being spoken about, there's never a circumstance where one is left in a new state without free will and going there. Oh my God, somebody else is controlling the body. So it doesn't work like that at all. Like the me might imagine it, it's not like that at all. It
Yeah,
just
and
relaxes and like the idea of free will just falls away. It's seen that it
it was,
never was free will.
yeah, it was really helpful to hear you say that the body already knows what to do when you were
Yeah.
saying, to eat and make friends and to,
Yeah.
like all of these things like that like seemed to make a difference for me. Like it
It's
because
amazing. It's crazy.
because
Yeah.
there's this fear that like, oh my God, like when I first came on, I came on a little bit late and it almost sounded like you were saying like you don't know what you're going to say, anything could happen, like, nobody's saying these words, and it almost made me feel like, oh my God, that sounds out of control. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
come out in the world and just be like, bleh,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
right? And
there's totally a sense of propriety, and if you've got a job and you're a wife and a mother, 100% all that will still go on. It's
yeah.
just seen that there never was a person doing that. And
Mhm.
so it's like the body totally knows how to socialize and fall in love and conduct romances and have children, and all those things will go on still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Thank
magically paradoxical. Yeah, so the Zooms now, I was just saying to anyone who just joined a little late, I'll put the details up on the website, but there's going to be an extra one on Saturday. And on Sunday it's going to be 4 to 5:30, not 4 to 6 now. So if everyone is all right with that, unless anyone's got a last question, we're going to finish in a moment. So it's just an hour and a half Zooms on Sunday, 4 to 5:30, and I'll put up the new Saturday one in the next couple of days once we work out. Is anyone with a last desperate question? And I'll do a little summation if there's nobody. It looks like there's not. Okay, well let me say this. How about we put it like this? We've spoken a few of us today about different aspects of non-duality, and like what we talk about often as the story, and this is in the story, or that's the story. Okay, let's try and sum up and make clear the difference of what's being spoken about here. Say Monique and I, who've just been chatting then, say Monique and I had been chatting also last week, and maybe we went out to a gallery. We could say, oh, we had a really nice time last week when we went out to that gallery and we had a chat. And Monique and I could talk about that, and that talking could appear to be happening about a story about what happened a week ago. The difference is, in the collapse of that me, that talking might appear to carry on, but there's no notion of what's being said or that there's a separate person who existed in a place called the past who did all these separate things. Yet that speaking and that storytelling still goes on. Wildly paradoxical. For me, that will be referring not just to a story, but to a story about real things that happened. So the story goes on. There's nothing other than stories. But what falls away is the notion that they're referring to real separation. Because of course, there's not real separation. There's just this, just the total immediacy of just this. Divine friends, God bless you. Mwah. Big kiss. I love each and every one of you. Oh, thanks. Oh, I'm going to love them. Eat them rather. Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Abu,
you.
there.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Lovely. See you next Sunday at 4 o'clock the same time. As I say, there'll be new Zoom times put up as well. Thank you so much to everyone there. God bless you all.